Sandor Dorgo, a pleasant lie. The 47th observation station silently gazed at the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayan mountain range. Its unused radio antenna blended seamlessly into the white landscape. Anton Alexandrovich Arkhipov slowly exhaled the smoke from his cigarette. In the light of the setting sun, the smoke performed a demonic dance before dissipating into the cold mountain air. The metal railing of the station's terrace pressed against his forearm. He hadn't even noticed how long he had been standing motionless, captivated by the perfect stillness of the world around him. The plateau, where the former radio telescope, converted for quantum world observation, stood tall, was desolate. Thanks to its altitude of over 5,000 meters and the Chinese Army's relentless terrain modifications, Anton always found it surreal how, in the pursuit of researching unknown life forms, humanity could so methodically eradicate the known ones. Freshly falling snow crunched softly beneath his feet as he approached the bulky metal door leading to the observation chamber. Through the small window, he could see the steaming coffee on his desk, which he had brewed before his cigarette break. With a practiced motion, he unlatched the thick metal fastener, designed to keep the door secure against the extreme mountain winds, and quickly slipped inside the building. He hung his heavy coat on the hook beside the door, and clumps of snow sluggishly slid off his hood. A slight draft rustled a clumsily placed piece of paper near the coat rack, on which was written, "Save your logs before leaving." Anton forced a smile. Not that there was anything worth saving. Since the 2027 detection, the quantum world had refused to reveal any further secrets of the universe, no matter how scientists worldwide tried to coax it into doing so. 3 long years had passed since then, and Anton felt that this was it. They would never uncover the life that the Italians had stumbled upon 38 months ago. He walked to his desk and glanced at his monitor. The screen displayed the same message it had for years. Sample unidentifiable. He dismissed the message with a click, adjusted the search parameter by 1,000th, and restarted the program. The 3-meter-long metal cylinder behind him broke the silence of the room, coming to life with a soft, monotonous hum. The screen went dark, and then a blinking green number appeared, 1%. Anton sat in his chair and, turning toward the metal cylinder, sipped his coffee thoughtfully. 4 years had passed since their first glimpse into the quantum world. He vividly remembered the initial excitement when the global scientific community cried out in unison, as if they had found the holy grail of physics. Anton had been at a scientific conference when the British announced they had successfully observed the decay of a proton multiple times in the quantum realm. In the real world, such an event would require a time span longer than the age of the universe itself. This confirmed the hypothesis that time did not flow in the quantum world as scientists had previously imagined. The device was patented and named Merlin. Its operating principle was simple. If microscopes weren't powerful enough to peer into the quantum world, they would enlarge space itself to see everything clearly. Anton later recalled an interview where a disheveled physicist, with deep bags under his eyes, apologized to reporters. "It's a desert, a vast desert, and we have no idea whether we'll ever find anything in it," he said, frustratedly adjusting his glasses in response to their questions. Anton was deeply struck by this analogy. A nearly empty world hidden within their own. Merlins were deployed in physics laboratories worldwide, their soft hum becoming part of daily life. Some minor results were achieved with them, but the major breakthrough never came. Many believed the device was just an expensive illusion, as no significant discoveries had been made beyond confirming proton decay. A year later, however, a laboratory in Rome made a discovery that changed the course of history forever. While studying the properties of the enlarged space, they realized that someone had already opened a gateway to this infinite desert, approximately 5 billion years ago. This was undeniable proof that intelligent life had once existed in the universe, reaching at least the same technological level as humanity. At first, the term quantum desert spread within scientific circles and later into common language, as pinpointing the exact location of an event in this strange world was nearly as impossible as finding a specific sand dune in a real desert. And so, after one great leap forward, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence had once again come to a standstill. But the world celebrated. The confirmation of extraterrestrial life ignited humanity's spirit. Many social scientists predicted that such a revelation could be dangerous, perhaps even catastrophic. But history proved those experts wrong. Upon hearing the news that they were not alone, the nations of the world embraced one another. Ceasefires and peace agreements became so frequent that they eventually lost their news value. The world's major religions turned to each other for spiritual guidance. As a staunch atheist, Anton had laughed heartily at the initial chaos when the highest-ranking religious leaders fumbled their way through explanations during live broadcasts. But even the spiritual storm eventually settled, and everyone found a way to integrate this new truth into their worldview. They were not alone. It didn't matter that the discovered species had, in all likelihood, long since gone extinct, its traces erased by the relentless force of entropy. People simply wanted to feel that they were not alone in the infinite cosmos. Anton couldn't blame them. After all, he had devoted his entire life to this pursuit. Like most of his colleagues at Roscosmos, he had spent countless nights staring up at the starry sky, hoping that somewhere out there, intelligence existed beyond Earth. After the 2027 detection, Anton had immediately applied to become an observer for the newly established international organization dedicated to monitoring the quantum world. This organization had united nearly every country on Earth. Former enemies had become teammates, and the goal of the race was clear: to find them. Observation stations sprang up worldwide, mostly in remote locations where atmospheric interference was minimal. As an unfortunate accident revealed, Merlins were extremely temperamental when operated near electromagnetic radiation sources. At the 87th observation station, an American observer mistakenly alerted NASA that aliens had arrived in Colorado, only to later discover that the anomaly had been caused by a local amateur radio club. Luckily, such incidents became increasingly rare. But it wasn't just the misunderstandings that disappeared. The results did, too. Anton was one of these observers. He had spent 38 long months stationed at this godforsaken outpost, with nothing to show for it. He placed his empty coffee mug on the table and glanced at the monitor. 80%. Almost done. The quantum world was not structured like the normal one. This ocean of particles was composed of waves, some stretching into infinity, others coiling into self-contained space-time vortices. Searching for curvatures that hinted at intelligent life was like looking for a needle in a desert. Except in this case, every grain of sand in the desert concealed an almost infinite number of needle-like objects, and every needle-like object looked like a grain of sand. After thousands of hours of searching and countless pots of coffee, Anton was still exactly where he had been when he first arrived at Observation Station 47. His hope was fueled by blind faith, the belief that they would find something or someone. Many times, he had thought that the entire program was built on those two same ideas, because endless searching was still easier to endure than the idea of cosmic solitude. Suddenly, Merlin fell silent with a sharp click. The software began processing the data. Anton leaned closer to the desk, already seeing the inevitable failure message flashing on the screen in his mind. Seconds later, a line of text appeared, glowing faintly in green light. 6,203,027 samples identified. He had found them. For long seconds, Anton simply stared at the screen, unable to believe his eyes. The softly pulsating green number was unreal. With that many signals, the cosmos should have been a crowded metropolis. Suddenly, he jumped out of his chair and punched the air in triumph. He felt like he had the strength to climb the highest peak or swim across the widest ocean. His entire being was flooded with the joy that humanity had been chasing since the dawn of time. They were not alone. The logs. He quickly stepped up to the keyboard and, typing frantically, initiated the saving process. As he entered the file name, he hesitated for a brief moment. After a second of thought, he typed a single word: hope. He sprang up from his chair and feverishly searched for the radio. The world had to know. After rummaging through a pile of papers and reports, he finally found the device. In his excitement, he repeatedly messed up the designated broadcast frequency, but at last, his finger hovered over the transmit button. Perhaps he should verify the data before announcing his discovery to the world. He placed the radio on the desk and walked back to the computer. He tried to force himself to stay calm, but his hands trembled as he opened the file he had just saved. The screen briefly went dark before filling with long sequences of numbers. Anton was too excited to manually verify everything, so with a quick command, he summoned the data visualization interface. The dense numerical sequences disappeared, replaced by a wave-like, self-looping, three-dimensional shape. For a moment, Anton was stunned by the sight, but he immediately recognized what he was looking at. It was a three-dimensional projection of a Kaluza-Klein circle, 4 spatial dimensions and a small, curled fifth dimension representing time. He was mesmerized by the elegant model, which contained an incomprehensible amount of information. He ignored the spatial dimensions; those could wait. He wanted to know if another civilization still existed alongside humanity. He zoomed in on the circle dominating the screen, and there it was. The timeline of the universe unfolded before him, dotted with holes drilled into the quantum world. The screen seemed to pulse with life. Anton gazed at the tiny points, watching them cluster along the surface of the circle. The shadows of civilizations emerged before him. His imagination soared as he pictured this densely packed, intergalactic community. How had they lived? Had they searched for each other, just like us? Had they felt the same joy when they discovered one another? Anton could have wept with happiness. He zoomed out with the mouse wheel to view the entire circle once more. Then he realized what he was looking at. His breath caught in his throat. This was not a representation of past events. It was the entire history of the universe, looped within the quantum world. Every hole, every breach that an intelligent species had, or would ever, create in this strange fabric was imprinted on this circle. But that also meant something else. Since this circle was a projection of real events, it had to follow causality. That meant, hypothetically, he could establish a sequence. If he knew the precise location of 2 values along the circle, the realization struck him like lightning. He quickly fed in the latest data from his own Merlin and retrieved the 2027 detection logs from the archive. With almost violent intensity, he slammed the enter key. The computer began processing. The seconds dragged on with excruciating slowness. Anton imagined wandering through the quantum desert, only to suddenly see vibrant cities rising on the horizon. Just a few more steps. On the screen, the circle stretched out, becoming a line. Beneath the line, dots visualized the frequency of holes punched into the quantum world, while the line itself represented time since the Big Bang. Anton stared at the chart in confusion. The 2027 event had occurred roughly 5 billion years after the Big Bang. The points clustered densely in the billions of years before and after the detection. But as Anton scanned forward in time, toward the holes created by humanity, something became painfully clear. The frequency was dropping. When he finally reached the familiar patterns of human activity, no matter how hard he looked, he saw nothing but their own traces on the fabric of space-time. Either the other civilizations had stopped using the quantum world, or he quickly ran another search. He set the starting point as the first hole created by a Merlin device and projected forward 100 billion years into the future. He clicked Highlight Unknown Patterns. The screen went dark for a moment. Then, after a brief pause, 2 words appeared. No results. The cities filling the horizon were all hollow and desolate. No one had been there for eons. The desert was empty once more. The question was no longer where they were. The question was now, where had they been? Anton sat in his chair, devastated. The hollow and empty universe pressed down on his chest with crushing weight. He had never felt so alone. He didn't know what could have happened. A galactic war. Was life destined to destroy itself? Did it even matter? They were too late. His mind raced feverishly, struggling to find the words to say into the radio clutched in his hands. How could he tell humanity that they owed their existence to the final convulsion of a dying universe? How could he tell them that they would forever be alone in the infinite emptiness? That the existence of humanity was nothing more than a fleeting brushstroke against the vast darkness? How could he steal hope from humanity? Indecision gnawed at his soul like a lion, tearing away galaxy-sized chunks. He placed the radio back on the desk and looked at the open log on the screen. where the relentless truth burned even brighter in the soft glow of two pale green words. He imagined the moment when people would realize that their existence was nothing but an accident, in a universe that no longer existed to sustain intelligent life. The candle flame of a hopeless humanity would slowly flicker out in the growing darkness. He made his decision. He selected the file labeled Hope and pressed delete. He knew that with the near-infinite number of variables, other researchers would never find what he had just seen on the screen. Deep down, he also knew that he had betrayed human intelligence. But this sacrifice had to be made for humanity. They had a long road ahead, but maybe, just maybe, they could still bring life to this dying universe. And for that, they would need faith and hope. He adjusted the search parameters by 1,000th and started a new analysis. Behind him, Merlin whirred softly to life. Grabbing his coat, he stepped outside onto the terrace. Leaning against the metal railing, he lit a cigarette. His hands no longer trembled. With a sorrowful gaze, he watched as the sun lazily dipped below the horizon, and the darkness settled in.